Can they be topped?
It's the biggest stage you can be on.
Who is going to win the World Championship in 2025? Welcome to the latest edition of Tungsten Talks, brought to you by the MODUS Super Series. And coming up is, of course, the World Darts Championship from Ali Pali, the PDC event. I've got alongside me Scott Mitchell. Scott, we're going to talk about previewing this event, but first of all, your memories of your fleeting appearance on that stage, because it didn't last long, did it?
No, it didn't. I made it a bigger occasion than it really was, and made a few mistakes in my preparation, and got it wrong and went down 3-0. I did on I think it was a Wednesday afternoon or something, and but you know, what a place to play. It was you walked in, you were in awe of the place, and we've all seen it on the TV, and yeah, it just didn't quite go right. I lost 3-0, got a couple of legs so that I didn't get whitewashed, but look, it's the World Championships, and nobody's going to hold back. It's the biggest one of the year. You've
played there. You've commentated there as well, actually. It's a special place, a special tournament. It feels very different to anything else, doesn't it? So much bigger.
Yeah, you're nervous before you walk near the place. It's quite a strange one, really. I should imagine it's the same as anything. The more you go there, the more you get used to it. There's just a hullabaloo about the whole place. The fan zone is amazing. I walked around the fan zone and it was absolutely rammed, and it's a very different experience to any other World Championship that I'd ever been to.
Yeah, the media centre is full as well. All of the big stories in darts kind of stem from the World Championship. Those of us that are in the game constantly know about these emerging stories. An example being last year, Luke Littler. We knew about him here at the MODUS Super Series, right? But he goes on and reaches the final. We're going to preview this year's tournament in just a second, but last couple of years have really given great stories. That the 2-9 dart attempts in the Michael v Michael final, then the Luke versus Luke final last year. Can they be topped in 2025 edition?
We keep saying that every year, you know, can anything be topped? But it's just a place and a tournament that new things keep appearing. And you sit there thinking, what could be the next thing? We don't know. We just don't know. There could be back-to-back 9-darters. There could be... It's just the standard at the moment. Anything standard-wise could happen. And there's a lot of more players. Like you see interviews from people like James Wade, and he said, the standard hasn't really gone a lot higher, but what's happened, there's a lot more people doing it. So there seems that there's more longevity to the standard. So, I always watch it every year. I love watching it. And, I'm looking forward to it this year already.
Right, let's go through the tournament. We'll talk about the seeds in a moment, but before we get to the seeds, of course, we've got the first round. Notable ones, that Ryan Meikle against Fallon Sherrock really leaps off the page, particularly because the winner plays Luke Littler. A lot of people are talking about Littler-Sherrock, but that's not an easy game for Fallon at all, is it?
No, Ryan quite well, actually. And he's at the tail end of the year, he started to perform and started to throw some good stuff. And the hardest thing for Ryan is he's quite a quiet lad. And the crowd are going to be for Fallon the whole time, and it's how he deals with that. It's very similar to the Ted Everts game for me, this one. You know, I think it's how the crowd level the game out. I mean, stats-wise, I think Ryan Meikle should win that one comfortably 3-0, but you just don't know what's going to happen with the way he reacts to the crowd.
Yeah, I mean, the only worst draw for Fallon would have been Cameron Menzies, of course, her partner. But he's playing Leonard Gates in the first round. That's very interesting. The winner taking on Nathan Aspinall. Yeah,
Leonard was playing really well. Cammy's been playing great all year, and we saw the tail end of last year that he started to believe in himself, and 2024 has been the year of Cammy, really. But Leonard Gates, he was good at the end of 23. We saw him in lots of senior stuff, picking up stuff, and I just think, I don't know what he's been doing this year. We haven't seen so much of him this year. We don't know. He'd signed new deals with new sponsors and things, so he was on the up in 2023. What nick he's in at the moment, I don't know. I think that's a 50-50 game for me.
Another name for you, Scott Williams, surprise semi-finalist last year. Nico Springer in the first round. He played fantastically on that stage behind us, didn't he?
He did, and if he can get that game out, he can trouble Scott Williams. I've seen Scott. The only time I've seen Scott this year is playing Jaden Walker in a B County game in Humberside at the start of the year, and he looked polished. He looked good, and it's again a tough one. A new thing for Nico. Scott is one of those that bounces off of the stage. He is flamboyant. He has that touch of something about being at the big show. So I'd say Scott Williams will get that one.
Well, if he does, he will play his practice partner and good friend Rob Cross. It's difficult, isn't it? Have you played a friend in a big World Championship tournament before?
Probably a tough one for me was Richard Veenstra. We'd become friends over 2 or 3 years, and he beat me in the quarterfinals of Lakeside. So yeah, the harder it's real hard because it's the biggest stage you can be on, and they will know each other's game inside out, and they will know when they're going to cough before they cough. It's one of those things when you practice together.
Everyone wants to know who Scott thinks will win the tournament. We'll get his prediction at the end of this chat. I'm going to give mine as well. In fact, there's been a name in my head all year, and it hasn't wavered all year, but we'll come to that at the end. But let's start with the person who won last year's tournament for the second round. So Luke Humphries, I mean, his draw bracket, I think's a bit of a stinker for a number one seed. Thibaut Tricot or Joe Comito if he in that first match. But if he gets through that, if we just go through the seeded opponents that he could face, could be Raymond van Barneveld in the next round, then James Wade or Peter Wright, and then any one of Stephen Bunting, Dirk van Dijven, Boda Damon Hetter or Mike De Decker, the World Grand Prix champ. That is tough, isn't it, for a number one seed?
Yeah, very tough. But the thing for that is for him, he will be playing them over a longer period of time. It's those early first few rounds where it's best of 5 sets. That's the thing for those world champions. You've got to get through those, and they're nervy going back as champion. I can assure you of that. There's no way of hiding when you go back as champion. And the hardest thing going back as champion, you're taking the trophy back and you're kind of giving it away. So you've had the trophy for a year and you've been that champion for the year, and you kind of don't realise in the hullabaloo of the whole thing that you've been the champion and realise what it means until you go and give that trophy back. So he's going to have hours where he's not a world champion. So it's how he reacts to that really.
He's won all manner of titles last year. It's interesting that he finally has managed to defend one before the World Championship when he won the Players' Championship finals. Will that stand him in good stead, better stead, without going in with that sort of thought about, can I actually defend a title?
Yeah, I think that isn't a bad thing. When you win a World Championship, the highlight, the eyes are all upon you. Everywhere you go, everything changes. And it takes you time to get back into your rhythm. It takes you time to get back into it. Some players never get it back. Some players never get that moment back. They win it once and they never really find that form to start winning titles again because it drains you down. The attention drains you down. And then you pay too much attention to your game because everybody else is. So for me, the fact that he's won a title before the end of the year, I think that will serve him in good stead because he'll believe that he can do it.
Him and Luke Littler are in the same half of the draw, so they could meet in the semi-finals. Now, Littler's quarter, we mentioned it's Mikkel or Sherrick for him in his first match. Nobody's going into this tournament with more pressure on the shoulders than Luke Littler, but nobody has dealt with pressure better than Luke Littler over the last 12 months. What do you make of his chances? What advice would you be giving him going into this tournament?
I don't think I'd be giving him any advice. I think he should be advising me. But look, I know that I've seen his parents actually last weekend, and they said that he's just trying to have a bit of downtime before the championships, bit of quiet time at home, bit of practice at home, and doing what he wants to do, the same as he did in the build-up to last year. So we know that he knows that works, and I think he'll prepare in a very similar fashion. I think all the pressure will be on that first game, no matter who it is. For me, I don't think he'll worry too much about who it is. He's got to control the game and control himself but he's been dealing with that all year. He's been doing big exhibitions all year, and I actually had an exhibition with him a couple of weeks ago, and we were on a VIP meet and greet, and I was signing these autographs and programs. I said, "Thanks ever so much for coming to see Luke," and they all started laughing because when the 7 others of you are there, they're there to see one man. So he's had to be dealing with that all year. So I think he'll be okay.
There is a potential last 16 clash between 2 former MODUS Super Series champions. It could be Luke Littler versus Darius Levanauskas in that stage, the most recent winner. But the seeded players in Luke's section of the draw, Richie Edhouse, Danny Noppert, Ryan Searle, Rob Cross, Jan van Veen, The world youth champion Nathan Aspinall, Andrew Gilding. Unseeded players include the likes of Cameron Menzies, Scott Williams, Nico Springer, Labanauskas, Ryan Joyce. There are plenty of names in there that could stop him before he even gets to the semi-final against Luke Humphries.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And when we talk about there are more players playing the standard, you've just listed a load of them. You know, they're playing that high standard and they have that high level as a level. So it doesn't matter. Some days it will come out, some days it won't. And I believe there are more players now doing the level than ever before. So that means we're going to be getting cracking games from the last 32 in, really.
It seems like one stacked half of the draw, two stacked quarters, and then the bottom half really open, particularly because of sort of inconsistent form of the two Michaels who contested the final a couple of years ago. Let's start by talking about Michael Smith, because in the way the PDC ranking system works, you're defending that prize money 2 years later. So while Luke Humphries is defending the title, it's Smith who's defending that huge chunk of ranking prize money of around £500,000. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a difficult thing. I think you have to look at it like you're not defending it. I mean, there was a system in the BDO that was very similar. That was a rolling system, and you're defending the stuff that's coming off the back. The only way to not defend is to not think you're defending it. Think about the tournament that you're actually playing in. And for me, he does love the place. He does love the place, and he does tend to play well there. We're saying, yeah, he's defending it from 2 years ago, but he's had a few big changes. Big change of dart manufacturer, which doesn't seem to have worked as well as he'd like, and some people settle with a new dart. Sometimes it takes a couple of years. Maybe now's the time that it's time for him to show up and show everybody what he's still got.
He would play Kevin Dukes, who almost beat him last year, or Noah Lynn van Leuven on her debut at the World Championship in his first match, a second round. If he lost that match, he could drop out of the top 20, Michael Smith. Now, it begs the question, is there too much of an imbalance now in the ranking system? Does somebody go to bed one night as a world number 2 and wake up as a world number 22?
There is an imbalance in the system. There's no two ways about it. The fact of, even in the first round matches and the way that tour cards are won and lost, there is too much money at that first round. There is for that to be a difference, to make a difference on whether you hold a tour card or not over 2 years, it is massive. It was one of the things, part of the reason that I lost my tour card, it was because I didn't win my first round game at Ali Pali, and I was fully aware of the pressure that I was under to kind of have to win it. And that was in my first year. Had I won that in my first year, I think I'd have kept my tour card now. But I think there's pressure at all ends and scales of the ranking system, because it's the same if you drop out of the top 32, if you drop out the top 16. The World Championship is massive, but I suppose the way to keep it massive for the players is to make sure something happens in the rankings around it, and that's exactly the way that it's set up.
And a word on Michael van Gerwen. He was supposed to be the dominant force in darts, but it's still, and I say this with a sort of tongue-in-cheek, still only 3 world titles. Many thought he would have more by now. What do you make of his chances?
He's not the one setting the pace anymore, is he? The two Lukes are setting the pace, and he's always been used to having the pressure of setting the pace. Is this going to be a year where, yeah, absolutely, I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you exactly what I've got? He has the levels of the two Lukes. He just hasn't had them as often as they do. But in a one-off situation, in a one-off game, in a World Championship where he's been umpteen amount of times and he feels comfortable there, I think he's still a danger.
But equally, is there a danger of an early exit for him? It'd be James Hurrell or Jim Long in his first match, potentially Brendan Dolan in the third round, and if he gets past those two, then it could be Gary Anderson in the last 16.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm friends with James Hurrell, so I would back him absolutely if he got to Michael. But I think at the moment that's probably a little bit too far for him. But what a game to be part of! What, as a dart player, to go to Ali Pali and play Michael van Gerwen, the dreams get bigger than that. He's still a big name within the game. So a player can go and play Michael in those first couple of rounds and be a little bit of a rabbit in the headlights, be the underdog. Just go and enjoy it. Concentrate, go and enjoy it, and who knows what you can produce. We've seen it before in the past. Andy Calaby.
Absolutely, yeah. We've seen some great upsets over the years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looking down the draw, look, there are potential for upsets, but just looking through, there are some matches where you think it wouldn't be much of an upset. So say if Wessel Nyman got past Cameron Corrison in his first round, which is expected to do, could he be the favourite even against Joe Cullen, who's seeded opposition?
I think with current form, Wessel would be the favourite. Joe has been struggling for the last 6 months to find that nonchalant throw that he had, that he was just stood there lobbing them and they were going where he wanted. We haven't seen that from Joe, and I think when they don't sort of then make all the TV tournaments like they had done in the past, a certain amount of panic sets in for these players because they've had a God-given right to be there. Now they're having to work for it. So is that why the likes of Joe and Nathan Aspinall form is a little bit indifferent, because they're trying too hard to get back to where they were?
He's the 8th favourite to win the tournament, actually, Wessel Nyman, which is remarkable. Just shows the form that he's in. Look, we'll talk about who you think are the contenders in a moment. But first of all, there's a few players that won't be there that you might expect to see there. First of all, Steve Beaton didn't have the final fanfare and make it to Ali Pali in his retirement season. Simon Whitlock missing out for the first time in a very long time. And of course, Bo Greaves declining the opportunity to play in the PDC, opting to go and win the WDF World Championship instead, which proved to be a good decision for her. She got the trophy in the end. But it's just showing a bit of a changing of the guard, the likes of Beaton and Whitlock not there, isn't it?
Yeah, we are, but they've been at the top for a long, long time. We forget, you know, when Simon went over from the BDO, he's been in that top bracket and entourage of the whole PDC for so many years. You know, it's hard to keep up. And we're local here down south, and so we're Simon Whitlock fans. He's around and he's close to all the competitions. It's local, and he's out there grafting. He's trying to make it happen. He's still out there trying to make it happen. It's not quite working for him. And I've seen interviews with him saying that he's going to embrace whatever's around the corner, and I'm sure he will. I think he'll be a big added bonus to any tournament over the next 2 years, that if he doesn't go back to Q School and get his card back.
Yeah, of course, a finalist in the PDC World Championship in 2010 as well, a semi-final in 2012, a big player in that event. But look, let's focus on the ones that are there. He always used to be a contender. He lost to Phil Taylor in that final. We don't have to worry about him anymore. He would be penciled into the final in the past, wouldn't he? Even in his retirement season, which was remarkable. But who do you see as the main contenders for the title this time around?
I mean, you'd be mad to look past the two Lukes. I think, you know, I feel one of them will be there. I'm not sure which one. And that's the honest truth, because of that half of the draw that you're just talking about.
Do you think they'll meet in the semi then? Do you think
I'm not sure. I feel my gut says that somebody's going to miss out. One of the two of them will miss out on the semi. That's what my gut feeling says, because of that half of the ball being so difficult.
And any other names? So someone's got to come through from the other half. Van Gerwen's number 3 seed, mentioned Gary Anderson. Dave Chisnell still hasn't got that big major to his name. He's in that half as well. And also Michael Smith, Gerwin Price. We haven't even spoken about him yet. I'm
expecting Gary Anderson to have a run in that half. You know, he says he doesn't like it. Oh, you know, I don't mind. And I think he does mind. I think he would like to have a third. Who wouldn't? And I think that he's playing some pretty special stuff at the moment. We've seen him going toe-to-toe with the top stars lately and missing by a smidgen. Maybe the luck could be on his on his side at the World Championships.
Statistically, the best darts he's ever played, Gary Anderson, when you look at the numbers he's produced over the course of this season. And look, he's one of the names. He is the name that I've had in my head the whole year. I just got a feeling that he could add a third world title this time around. Look, he might have to do it the hard way, might have to get past Michael van Gerwen. But another thing with Gary Anderson is motivation, isn't it? And a game at Ali Pali a few years ago against van Gerwen, which he lost and he felt he should have won, got the bit between his teeth, went and won the title the next 2 years and reached the final for the third year after that before losing to MVG. I think I saw a little bit of that when he lost to Luke Littler in the Grand Slam, that glint in the eye, that little bit of determination, and maybe that was the right defeat at the right time for him.
I did. I saw that glint in his eye, and we forget that it was 2015 when he won his first one, and he backed it up with 2016. That was 10 years ago now. And for us to be saying now, 10 years on, that he's doing the best numbers he's ever done in his darting life, that's pretty special. That's pretty special. Now, I spoke to Martin Adams, and he said he played his best darts in his 50s. And we're certainly seeing that from Gary Anderson, because there's a certain element of, you've kind of been there, done it, and bought the T-shirt. So you can throw with an element of freedom. And I think that's what we're seeing from Gary Anderson. He just goes up there and it's like a practice throw. He's not playing the opponent anymore. He's playing the board. He's putting his stuff up there and going, come and beat me. I'm going to put this game and this standard up here. If you're going to get me, come and beat me. And I think he's great to watch still.
Look, before we get to the big question, I just want to ask you about experiences of being on that stage, of seeing the audience there at Ali Pali. How on earth do you concentrate with 1,000 traffic cones, Wallace and Gromit, the Mario brothers, and everyone in the world in fancy dress behind you having the greatest time over the Christmas period?
Like I said, I've done Ali Pali, I've done Butlins, Minehead, I've done... The Ali Pali is really quite easy unless it's the one voice that gets directed at you. For a dart player, the one voice or the one person whistling, or you're going for a double, or it's fairly easy because it's one sort of din, if you like. Very different to what you can hear on the live coverage on the TV, because it's controlled. The noise levels of the crowd are controlled. They're a lot louder than what you hear on the TV. But you just learn to get by it. Your experience teaches you that you've been in similar situations before, and you get up there and just try and play like you're the only guy in the room that's watching. You're just watching yourself. So you kind of, but then when you do something good and you do something big and the roar goes and they like a hit on 180 and you turn around and the heat of the breath where everybody's cheering towards the stage hits you like a fan heater. It's just like one big solid movement of hot air. And that was something I'd never experienced before in my life.
Okay, Scott, well, let's answer a few questions then. Let's make a few predictions. The first one, who's your long shot, your big outsider that might spring a few surprises, cause a few upsets on the way, maybe someone that wouldn't be at the forefront of anybody's mind?
Somebody I met a few years ago, and he actually beat me when he was starting in the game, and that's Martin Lukeman. Martin Lukeman, Smash has got levels that the others have. And I believe that he's going to have been practicing hard, and he loves the big stage, he loves the attention, and I think it could be Martin Lukeman could have a big run.
I'm going to go based on our experience of watching someone here at the MODUS Super Series, and that's Jim Long, because he's literally a long shot, isn't he? But he's got James Hurrell in the first round. I think that's winnable. And if he plays his A game and Michael van Gerwen's the vulnerable MVG that we've seen, I think he could spring one of the biggest surprises we've ever seen at the World Championship. So Jim Long for me. Right. Who do you expect to underperform? I think I might have just answered my own question. I start there. Michael van Gerwen. What say you, Scott?
I don't know. I think you're probably looking at maybe Joe Cullen or somebody like that. I think that Joe struggled his way in. He's probably in on previous performances, and he stands a real sort of big chance of. I'm just going on what he's been doing, sort of like Pro Tours and things like that. I just think that he's not one that's been in a rich vein of form on the way in, and maybe. He could come unstuck. Who's
going to be the biggest hitter in the tournament, the most maximums? And of course, they'll be raising money for a good cause as well.
Yeah, the whole maximum idea and how the World Championship raising money for good causes is amazing. You can't look past the two Lukes. If they can stay in, I think they'll be hitting the most 180s.
I think, after you disagree with me so vehemently in the last one, I'm just going to agree with you on that one. Luke Littler, I think, will probably be the man with the most maximums. And finally, the big one, who is going to win the World Championship in 2025?
I think Luke Humphries wins it again and goes back to back.
Well, I'm going to say Gary Anderson wins it. He's been the name on my mind all year. I think there is a third world title for Gary Anderson, and I think that's going to come this year. So we could be texting each other during the final and saying, is it going to be my man or yours? Thanks for your thoughts, Scott. Let us know your thoughts as well. Comment below this video. Get in touch with us on social media. Tell us who you think is going to win the World Championship and the answers to all of those questions. But most of all, enjoy the darts.